Truth is, I sold my house. My brother-in-law, Kevin, said. My husband and I were shocked, stunned into silence. The person most shocked of all was my mother-in-law. Why? Why would you do such a thing? Weren't you supposed to come pick me up? My mother-in-law was visibly upset, confronting Kevin. Calm down. Kevin tried to pacify her and started to explain why he did it. My name is Sandra. I do remote work with my husband Robert. The peaceful work environment where we could take breaks whenever we wanted satisfied both of us. Then my mother-in-law came to live with us. We were financially stable, so we didn't have any complaints. But why aren't you two going out to work? My mother-in-law would look at us disapprovingly as she said this. I felt exhausted at her words, as if the same thing was starting all over again. When my mother-in-law first questioned us like this, we explained that we were working remotely. But aren't you just playing around? I've told Robert the same thing. Are you listening? When will you two start working properly? Aren't you thinking about your future life? My mother-in-law refused to understand our job. Oh, I'm so worried. I wonder if I made a mistake coming to this house. I should have gone to Kevin's house. She would often sigh and say this. The Kevin she mentioned is Robert's brother. He has married a wealthy woman named Carol, who he found somewhere, and now he seems to be living off her wealth. My mother-in-law wasn't informed about this. Kevin asked us not to tell her. Kevin's house is not a small one like this. It's very large. It's like a foreign castle. Well, I'm planning to move to Kevin's house eventually, which will become my house. My mother-in-law would say this, waiting for Kevin to come get her. We knew that the day would never come when Kevin and his wife would come to pick her up. That's because Robert once suggested to his brother, who his mother dotes on, that she could live with him. However, Kevin refused to live with his mother. So, we ended up living together. And even though we were called unemployed for doing remote work, we resigned ourselves to the fact that that's just how she is. But an incident occurred that made it impossible for us to continue tolerating it. Out of the blue, we got a call from Kevin. I'll be coming over this weekend. Without waiting for a response, he hung up. What do we do? That guy hasn't changed a bit. Robert and I were baffled, and overhearing our conversation, my mother-in-law leaned in, looking delighted. He's coming to pick me up! Please, help me prepare to move! She said, and then dragged Robert off to her room. Robert looked troubled. Mom, Kevin's not coming to pick you up. He probably called because something happened. But she snorted, clearly unconvinced. That can't be true. But he didn't say anything about picking you up on the phone, right? He just didn't say it, Robert. I'm so tired of this house. You're probably hoping to make me your housekeeper, but that's not going to happen. We couldn't understand why she was having such paranoid thoughts. Since she came to our house, she got up whenever she wanted, didn't do any housework, and lived off the pocket money we gave her. Well, we weren't going to force my mother-in-law to stay, so we did as she said, packed her bags, and waited for his brother to come. Over the weekend, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived at our place. As soon as they entered our home, they had suspiciously ingratiating expressions on their faces. I had a bad feeling. Just then, my mother-in-law emerged with sparkling eyes. You finally arrived! Listen here, Sandra is totally inept at house chores, so I have to do them. And Robert completely ignores me. Isn't that terrible? She said that with a victim-like expression, pushed past Robert, and welcomed her brother into our home. You guys, don't mistreat Mom. There's no way we're doing that. We're giving her an allowance, and she's eating whatever she likes. Plus, Sandra is handling the house chores, Robert said, with a complicated expression on his face, but his brother just looked suspicious. Robert has always been a bit clueless, probably treating Mom badly without even realizing. And it seems Sandra isn't the considerate type. That's right! Kevin really understands me. Hearing this conversation, Robert and I couldn't help but scowl. Despite this, we decided to entertain our guests, and led the couple to the living room. We all sat around the living room table, with Robert and me on one side and the couple on the other. "Now, what are you sitting around for? Serve the tea!" "Huh? I thought you were going to make the tea, mother-in-law." "What are you saying? Making an old woman work? You see, Kevin? Sandra is this kind of person." My mother-in-law even started fake crying at that point. I was so stunned at her behavior that I didn't even feel like retorting. Once I had served the tea, the couple became solemn. The truth is, we sold our house. Robert and I were surprised and shocked at Kevin's words. The one who took the biggest shock was my mother-in-law. Why would you do something like that? Didn't you come to pick me up?" she asked, flustered, confronting Kevin. He tried to calm her down, saying, "Easy, easy," and then began to explain. "We've been in debt, and though we could repay the debt by selling the house, we're broke and have nowhere to live. So we came to discuss if we could stay here." "What? Debt?" "I was trying to start a business, but it didn't go well. Well, that happens, right?" Kevin, unabashed, laughed while saying this. Robert and I sighed in exasperation. "We only need to stay until we find a new house. Please, we have no one else to turn to." The couple bowed their heads together. I think our expressions must have been complicated, but if they had nowhere to live, we had no choice. We agreed to let the couple temporarily stay in our house. However, we made them promise to leave within a month. Kevin said, "Got it," and still laughing, went back to prepare to move their things. After they left, my mother-in-law sat silently, looking thoughtful. Robert and I assumed she was still in shock. The next day, the couple's stuff arrived right away. "This much? Where should we put it all?" "We're in trouble. We might have to sell some of it, or rent a locker." While discussing this and moving Kevin's things, my mother-in-law dropped a bombshell on us. "I've been thinking, won't we be more secure in the future if Kevin's here? So you freeloaders can leave, can't you?" My husband and I were taken aback by my mother-in-law's abrupt statement. "If you insist, I can tolerate Robert staying, but I don't need a wife who can't do anything. Get a divorce. Then the space that Sandra was occupying can be used for all these packages." My mother-in-law made this demand eagerly, her eyes shining, and looked to my husband for agreement. "What are you talking about?" He reacted as he usually did, completely astounded. Then, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived. My mother-in-law greeted them with joy. Although I was still shaken by her previous words, my husband decided to ignore them for the moment and asked his brother to deal with the packages. "There are more than I thought. Try to reduce the number, rent a locker, or sell some if you have to." When my husband said that, his brother glared at him and said, "What are you talking about? These are important packages. How could I sell them? And what if someone steals them from a locker? What if they get damaged? Are you going to take responsibility, bro?" My husband shook his head at his brother's selfish behavior. "This is our house, you know. It's only natural that you should endure some inconvenience, right? If you don't like it, find a place to live, quickly, and leave." At that moment, my mother-in-law shouted, "What are you talking about? Didn't I just say, if you two are not happy with Kevin and the rest, you can leave? You're basically freeloaders. You're not needed in this house. Kevin is trying to start a business, and all you two do is loaf around the house doing so-called remote work. You're a nuisance." My mother-in-law said this as if it were her own house. My husband and I looked at each other in disbelief. My brother-in-law and his wife were surprised at my mother-in-law's words, but then they started to smirk. That might not be a bad idea. "Mom, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's a hassle to look for a place, so we could live here. So sell this house to us. Right, Carol? I feel uncomfortable with you two around, so it would be helpful if you sold this place to us. Plus, it seems like our mother-in-law is on our side. So sell this place to us." My husband and I were dumbfounded at their words. "What nonsense are you?" my husband began, but was interrupted by my mother-in-law, who gloated. "See? Both Kevin and Carol are saying the same thing. So what will you do, Robert? If you're going to divorce, you can stay here. My mother-in-law glared at me triumphantly. I braced myself to retaliate, but my husband spoke first. Don't you just say whatever you want? Why does Sandra have to leave? My husband was red in the face with anger, raising his voice. Don't shout like that. It's better without a burden around, isn't it? My mother-in-law retorted, but my husband responded in an exasperated tone. You don't understand anything. This is Sandra's house. At my husband's words, my mother-in-law and brother-in-law and his wife gasped. My husband started speaking up to them, adding to the tension. This is the house that Sandra bought for our life together. What? What are you saying? Isn't it the husband's job to buy the house? There's no such rule. Moreover, Sandra covers all of Mom's allowance and living expenses. Sandra said she'd take on that burden because your pension is minimal, and it would be difficult for you to have financial freedom with just that. Robert was glaring at his mother-in-law with an intense expression. Despite this, my mother-in-law seemed to disbelieve, looking at me and snickering in disbelief. Unbelievable! Sandra just plays on the computer all day. She doesn't even do housework seriously. Wasn't my allowance coming out of my pension? Otherwise, there's no way Sandra could afford to give me $500 a month. Moreover, my mother-in-law continued, Sandra is the one managing my pension, isn't she? You might have told Robert otherwise, but I'm sure you're dipping into my pension. She puffed up her chest and glared at me. I glared back, not to be outdone. It's true, I've succeeded as a business owner. You're lying. Divorce this lying wife already. You should live here with me and Kevin and Carol. Besides, there's no proof that Sandra is earning money. There is. Here it is. With that, I pulled out my paycheck and showed it to her. The sight of it left my mother-in-law and Kevin and his wife slack-jawed. We've not used any of Mom's pension since she moved in here. If Mom ever wanted to leave, Sandra has been managing it so she could live independently. But instead, Mom, you've been bossing Sandra around, interfering with her work. You're the problem. If you don't like Sandra, you should leave, right now. I don't believe any of this. We don't mind if you and Kevin temporarily stay, but some patience should be expected. We didn't want you two to live here in the first place. We only agreed because you begged us. Robert said this, glaring at Kevin and his wife. Kevin and his wife broke out in a cold sweat, not used to Robert raising his voice. Just kidding! But you sure are earning a lot, huh? I wish you could teach me some business tricks. Right, Carol? Yeah. While it's true we were worried about living with our sister-in-law, it seems like she's a good person after all. Kevin and his wife smiled at each other, but my mother-in-law was unyielding. Don't act so high and mighty. You're just a bum. Enough. Robert, you should leave too. You should go outside and see how harsh this world can be. My mother-in-law, filled with conviction, refused to listen to anything we said afterward. Robert and I sighed in disbelief, interrupting her with, well, if that's how you feel, we'll pack our things and move to a new house. You guys will be stuck with the mortgage, but if that's okay with you, don't come crying to us for help. If you insist, mother-in-law, we'll leave. Even with a pension, maintaining your lifestyle will be challenging. But I guess that can't be helped, can it? At our words, my mother-in-law turned beet red and yelled at us to get out. Wait! You can't be serious! We don't have to do that, do we? Yes! If you two are here, we're safe! Kevin and his wife tried to stop us, but my mother-in-law gave us a fierce look and said, Don't you dare talk back! Kevin, you're going to be a CEO, aren't you? I don't mind you using my pension, so just start a company and show us how successful you can become. I'll show you what happens when you defy us. My mother-in-law's words were filled with intensity. Hearing this, we decided it was best to no longer get involved with her or Kevin's family and left the house. Of course, the mortgage on the house remained, but we changed the ownership to Kevin's name. Some time had passed since then. While there was some residual dissatisfaction from that incident, Having been freed from my mother-in-law's sarcasm, we had resumed our normal routine. Just when we were working from home in our new apartment, as usual, my mother-in-law called my husband, crying. "Kevin has taken my pension and disappeared! He hasn't come back in a week! Carol and I are left alone in the house, and we're in trouble! Please help us!" She wept as she said this. After my husband calmed my mother-in-law, he asked why Kevin had gone missing. "I gave all of my pension to Kevin for his startup, but he ended up spending it all on gambling. When I confronted him about it, he disappeared!" She cried out desperately. Since my mother-in-law couldn't continue the conversation through her sobbing, the phone was handed to Carol. "Could you please call us back? We can't live like this. Ever since Kevin failed his startup and sold the house we were living in, our parents have disowned us. My dad won't forgive us for selling that house. We haven't been able to reach either our dad or mom since..." Carol pleaded with my husband. At the sight of them, my husband muttered, "I knew it," in a disgusted tone. "That's unfortunate, but don't involve us. We warned you when we left, didn't we? Even if you come crying to us, we won't help. You can report Kevin as missing to the police. It's none of our business." With that, he hung up. I was shocked, but my husband said, "They got what they deserved." And I agreed. After that, they called my husband's cell phone many times. When my husband, frustrated, answered the phone, Carol would cry about not knowing how to report Kevin as missing. We were surprised she didn't know and gave her advice to call the police. However, they still couldn't find Kevin. Just when we thought they might not find him, we heard that Kevin had been arrested for bank robbery in another state. Apparently, he did it to repay his debts. It seems it wasn't his first offense, and he would likely face actual jail time. Carol can't go back to her parents' home, and is still living with my mother-in-law in that house. It's uncertain whether or not she will divorce Kevin. That's probably the least of her concerns right now. She registered with a temp agency and is struggling with her first job ever, but she's somehow making ends meet every day. As for my mother-in-law, Kevin took all of her pension, and now she has to repay his debt. She has also started working part-time to repay the debt. My husband and I expressed sympathy for my mother-in-law and sister-in-law's family, but we have made it clear that we have no intention of helping them, and we have cut off all communication. They must be tasting the harsh realities of life that my mother-in-law always talked about. Despite the changes since my mother-in-law moved in with us, my husband and I are glad that we have returned to our peaceful days.
Oh, wow! Your mom only finished middle school and works part-time? Are you here for the money? When my mother answered janitor when asked about her occupation by my soon-to-be father-in-law, the whole family burst into laughter. Seriously? A cleaning lady? That's as low as it gets. I can't even imagine. I couldn't believe they were mocking my mother, who raised me single-handedly, so cruelly. I couldn't bear the thought of becoming family with these people. Well then, let's just pretend this conversation never happened. I brushed them off coldly. My name is Emily Yale. I turned 26 this year. I graduated from a public university with a degree in education and currently work as an English teacher at a public high school. I live a rather fulfilling life every day. Today, I'm going on a weekday date with my boyfriend, John, for the first time in a while. We plan to dine at a restaurant he booked. Sorry to keep you waiting. You've had a long week. You too. Thanks for all your hard work every day. John, who is the same age as me, graduated from medical school and is currently a resident doctor. We met at a college club and it's already been 5 years since we started dating. He's incredibly kind and sincere, and I even feel like he's too good of a boyfriend for me. During the tough times, when we both were busy with national and job placement exams, we did get into fights from being under immense pressure, but we always reconciled quickly and supported each other. As I was eating dessert, I was thinking that this lovely restaurant seemed a bit pricier than usual, when suddenly, John turned serious. My residency will be over soon. Medicine is a tough profession, but I want to do my best to become a full-fledged doctor. Together. With you, Emily. Will you marry me? That's when he presented me a ring. John? Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked straight at him. Thank you! I'm so happy! I think we can always support each other if we're together. With a trembling voice, I accepted his proposal. My mom should be happy for us, or so I thought while accepting. My mother, Linda, lost her husband when she was young and raised me all on her own. Her father, that is, my grandfather, once suggested that we live together, but she declined, and we have been living with just the two of us since then. The first time I met my grandparents was when I was in the upper grades of elementary school. Because I got married against my parents' wishes, I was young and stubborn, and couldn't rely on them right away. I might have caused you to suffer because of that. That's what my mom always said, but I don't remember ever feeling that way. My mother, who was always positive and kind, and showered me with unconditional love, is the most important person in my life. She is also the woman I aspire to be. When I went to report the engagement with John, my mom blessed us from the bottom of her heart. Congratulations! I'm so happy for you. I'm sure you'll be very happy with John. Thank you. I look forward to our future together, said John. And my mom was on the verge of tears. While feeling happy about the two of them, I said, we need to greet your parents as well. Thank you. I went to a boarding school from middle through high school and lived alone, even in college, so I don't see my family very often. But I think they'll be happy. Make sure to properly introduce yourself to John's family, dear. After all, you're about to become part of their family. My mother wholeheartedly supports us. I heard his family are all doctors. His father has his own hospital, and his mother is a stay-at-home housewife. And apparently, he has a younger brother who's 8 years younger than him. I hope we get along, but introducing myself makes me nervous. Don't worry, I'll arrange somewhere for us to meet. Yes, thank you. I'm nervous, but looking forward to it. I believe that a bright future was waiting for us. That is, until that day. The day of the meetup 2 months later. As we were waiting in the private room of a high-end restaurant, his parents and brother arrived a little late. Nice to meet you. This is my mom. My dad runs an internal medicine clinic. My mom is a full-time housewife. And this is my brother, who is a senior in high school. John and I introduced our families respectively. His doctor parents were dressed impressively as expected. However, his brother was a bit of a rebel, with brown hair, sloppy uniform, and constantly fiddling with his phone. After introducing ourselves, John started the conversation. I'm thinking of marrying her. With that, his father gently corrected him while stroking his mustache. First, let's get to know her family. If we're becoming family, we need to know about the other family's background and character. His mother also scrutinized us with assessing eyes. By the way, where's your father today? I've asked John to tell them that we are a single-parent household. Something is off. My father passed away when I was young, and since then, my mother raised me by herself, I explained. And his brother exaggeratedly distorted his face and said, Really? A single mother household? Unbelievable. This one, who said that with a smug attitude while crossing his legs, was his arrogant younger brother. What do you mean, unbelievable? My mother has raised me on her own until now. I'm deeply grateful for that. I couldn't help but raise my voice. Right, watch your mouth and put away that phone! John admonished him, and his brother turned away in a huff. You're a high school teacher, if I recall correctly? His mother pointed the arrow at me this time. Yes, I teach English at a public high school. As soon as I answered, his family voiced their true feelings all at once. A teacher? Huh! We don't have any in our family. And she's in the humanities? Isn't she unsuitable for our son? We wanted our son to marry a doctor's daughter. A public high school teacher seems plain and poor. I'm in a totally different world, already secured a recommendation for a medical school. Astonished at their blunt words, John raised his voice. She is a wonderful woman. She's very dedicated to her job. Don't talk to her like that. Then his father glanced at my mother. We haven't given our consent to their marriage yet. A single mother household and a teacher. What about you, ma'am? Can we ask about your educational background and job? My mother responded firmly to this. I've done various jobs since I lost my husband. Currently, I work as a janitor at a hospital and school. I only finished middle school. Before my mother finished speaking, his family looked at each other and began to laugh. Oh my, she only went to middle school and doing part-time jobs? You must have been very poor. His father was utterly dismissive of my mother. Hey, seriously, even with just a high school diploma, you're in a tight spot. So now she's a cleaning lady? Lowest of the low. His younger brother also looked down on her with an expression of disdain. Your mother only finished middle school and works as a part-time janitor? I can't even imagine such a life. I, who married into a family of doctors, can't even begin to comprehend this marriage. Is it just for the money? His mother, with her eyebrows dramatically furrowed, dealt the final blow. Just as I thought. We cannot possibly approve this marriage. His father made the declaration as if stating the final verdict. What awful people! I was stunned and at a loss for words. It's one thing for them to insult me, but to ridicule my mother, who single-handedly raised me up to this point, is unforgivable. I can't possibly be a part of this family. With a gesture, I stopped my mother from standing up and I rose to my feet. I understand how all of you feel, so we'll consider this meeting as if it never happened. Is that acceptable? With a mask-like expression, I coldly made my declaration. After a moment of dead silence, his family exchanged glances and then burst out laughing. I thought you were going to say something important. We're the ones who want to call off the engagement. Did you realize you were about to be turned down and out of pride, decided to call it off from your end? His parents said with a triumphant air. Wait a minute, that's not it. Unable to tolerate his parents' behavior, John interjected hurriedly. I'm sorry. I can't become a part of this family. I'm really sorry for my family's rude behavior. Seeing our earnest exchange, his parents momentarily stopped laughing. Why should you apologize? Yes, you should find a more suitable lady. Maybe a fellow doctor, or even a wealthy lady would be nice. I prevented him from continuing, and instead, I posed a question. Would it have been better if I were a wealthy heiress? Of course. Even if you're not a doctor, being a wealthy heiress wouldn't be a problem. You could support our hospital, right, dear? That's right. That might even be more beneficial for us. His parents' posturing continued. Maybe it's about time I told them the truth. So, you're saying you would want to miss out on such an opportunity? What? They were unable to comprehend my words, and looked at me perplexedly. What do you mean? By marrying our son, we'll acquire some wealth? Where would a janitor and an ordinary teacher get that kind of money? Seeing his mother and brother like this, he sighed heavily and held his temple. What's wrong? You've been acting weird. In response to his father's oblivious question, John asked, Did you not listen to their self-introductions? Does the name Yale not ring your bell? He said and quickly looked up. What about it? It's not worth remembering such a family. Yale. His father seemed to get the hint. That's right. My grandfather is the chairman of Yale University, and the woman here is his daughter. What? Yale. Academy? The elite institution with everything from a kindergarten to a university? It even has a medical school and a hospital. His father's eyes widened in surprise. Yes, that Yale. You do know it, don't you? Now it's my turn to go off. No way. A daughter of Yale Academy dropping out of middle school? A janitor? It's impossible. Exactly. Your lie would be exposed instantly. If you feel bad, make up a better lie. I will further educate his disbelieving parents. My mother, she's a janitor in hospitals and schools, right? I'm talking about the hospitals and grad schools at Yale. What? She's undercover as a janitor. It sounds extravagant to call it an internal investigation, but her job is to observe the actual conditions of the school while cleaning to report any issues. This was a task requested directly from my grandfather. If you think it's a lie, you're welcome to verify. What? What? My detailed explanation finally seemed to lend some credibility. His parents suddenly began to panic. Why didn't you tell us something so important sooner? Yes. If we knew that, we would've. This is what happens when you don't listen to what people have to say. Such fools. I was interrupted before I could explain in detail. I was prepared to answer any questions, but it's unfortunate. I can't forgive the fact that even my precious mother was insulted, I responded quietly. The reason my mother dropped out of middle school was due to her poor health since childhood. She had a brother to carry on the family line, so my grandfather prioritized her health over education. As soon as she graduated from middle school, she moved to a country house and became healthier through ongoing treatment and rest. And there, she fell in love with my father, she said. She had a big argument with my grandparents, who wanted to marry her into a suitable family, and ended up leaving home to get married. They lived without relying on her family at all. However, when her husband passed away, and knowing that she was raising her daughters single-handedly, my grandparents recommended us returning home. But my mother didn't comply immediately. I was stubborn, she said. Knowing her, she must have felt guilty about running away and then asking to return home. Still, both wanted to see and introduce themselves to their grandchild. Gradually, the relationship improved over time. Changing her surname back to Yale was, of course, for my sake. Whether he was unable to comprehend the situation, his brother was dumbfounded. So I told him, "It seems you've been recommended for admission to the medical school." "Which university?" What? Suddenly changing the topic flustered John's brother. "Oh, so sorry. We're talking about Vassar College's medical school?" "Oh." His mother realized something upon saying that. Vassar College is a sister school to Yale. If I talk about today's events, your admission through a recommendation could be revoked, right? Hey, stop joking around. That's right. Our son had been admitted and nothing can change that. We even paid under the table to make up for the lack of grades. Revoking it now would be a joke. His father slipped up. Bribery? Both John and I exclaimed in unison. You went that far, Dad? No, that's not what I... Cornered, his father was clearly flustered. His mother and brother by his side turned pale. So, with such lighthearted attitude towards admission, so it was about money after all. Did you bribe his teacher? No, like I said, that's not... The president of Vassar College is my uncle, you know. If I report this, I believe he will investigate it thoroughly. What? What authority do you have? You're so arrogant. This time, with her face beet red, his mom comes biting at us. I hold no authority here, but I was told I'd eventually work at Yale. Say what now? That's right. I obtained my teaching license, and I'm currently working as a public school teacher to gain a wide range of experience, under the condition that I would eventually work at the university. Upon hearing this, his mother's tone softened into a coo. Oh, now, let's calm down. Let's just let bygones be bygones. Your attitude will determine whether I approve of this marriage. Isn't that a fair deal? Yeah. Our son is also the heir of our clinic. He needs our permission to get married. You want to marry John, right? His father was also entirely on board. His younger brother also chimed in. Come on now, just let them get married and tell her to not rat me out. Faced with these three selfish people, he yelled, I don't need permission from you people to get married. I'm cutting ties with all of you. What? At his fury, his family was stunned. I always thought you were pretentious because we come from a line of doctors. But I never thought you'd show such an attitude at an important first meeting with my significant other. Hey, what are you saying? That's right. Cut ties? With us? Facing his parents, who were lost for words, he continued unflinchingly. I was utterly ashamed of the way you guys had spoken to her and her mom. And the idea of bribing someone to get my brother into med school? How foolish. What? I despise you all. I don't consider you my family anymore. I'm going to marry her and be happy. Please stay out of our lives for good. With his declaration of cutting off family ties, the parents were flustered. So, you're saying you're not taking over the clinic? But if our younger son doesn't get into medical school, there's no heir. He brushed off his parents' serious plea. I have no intention of taking over. I've been asked to stay on as a surgeon after graduation from Yale. I've been considering working as a surgeon at a hospital rather than being an internist at your clinic. What? I don't care. Let him take over the clinic. Hey, wait. Think it over. We have patients who come to us because they expect you to eventually take over. That's right. We'll be in trouble if you don't take over. Bro, I have no place to work at in the future. Say you'll take over. Ignoring the chaos of his family, he turned to my mother. I am truly sorry. I want to sever ties from my family here and build a home with your daughter. Please allow us to marry. His voice seemed to tremble a bit. You don't need to apologize. I didn't fall for you because you're a doctor. I fell in love with your kindness and sincerity. My mother, who was next to him, nodded and said, That's right. I know that you're a kind and respectable young man. It's amazing that you're a surgeon. I want to support your dreams and happiness. Thank you. I really appreciate it. As he continued to bow, my mother watched him with a smile. His family watched this scene in a state of shock. Mom, let's go home. There's no point in staying here anymore. Indeed. Then we shall take our leave. If there's anything else you need to say, please reach out here. My mother left the business card of Yale's legal advisor as she left. 1 year since then, John and I are married and living happily together. He stayed at the hospital after graduating from Yale, working as a diligent and skilled surgeon. Despite his busy days with little sleep, I'm happy to see him working enthusiastically. My grandfather, who took a liking to him, said, I hope you'll join our university's hospital in the future. As for his family, firstly, the truth about my brother-in-law's bribery was revealed, and the teacher who accepted the money was strictly punished. My brother-in-law was already a delinquent and didn't have the grades, so his admission through recommendation was revoked. He tried to get into med school through general admission, but of course, he didn't pass. He's supposed to be studying while taking a year off, but with his attitude, it's questionable how seriously he's taking it. That guy needs to experience hard work and hardship, and how to understand others' feelings. He was shrugging too. His parents' clinic was losing patients due to the arrogant attitude of the director. People who had high hopes for my husband left as soon as they realized that he wasn't going to take over, accelerating the clinic's financial difficulties. His mother, with her attitude, turned all the nurses and office staff against her, so most of them quit. News about the bribery for college admissions spread, and they were ostracized by relatives and the industry, finally deciding to close the clinic. As for me, at my grandfather's request, he hopes not only for me to be an educator, but eventually to contribute to management as well. I've begun studying administration of educational institutions. Guided by my uncle and seniors, I want to learn and grow little by little to become a better professional. Seeing me, my mother said, It's wonderful to see our family become even more united. The one who's really happy to hear such words is me. I want to give back even more in the future. While my days are indeed busy with a mountain of things to learn, I am blessed to have the life I am leading, and am very grateful for the support I receive from my beloved mother and husband.
One day, I found completed divorce papers and a marriage license from my husband's room. There are two things evident from this. One, my husband wants to divorce me. The other is he wants to marry another woman. I had suspected his infidelity, but never thought he had prepared to this extent. Amidst all this, it just happened that a business trip for my husband was scheduled. This is my only chance. My name is Karen, and I'm 32 years old. My family consists of my husband, William, whom I married 6 years ago, and our daughter, Sarah, who will turn 4 this year. When our daughter was born, I switched my work mode to telecommuting. After dropping my daughter at the kindergarten, I work from home. My life with my husband is peaceful without any major disputes. Lately, he seems busy with overtime work and business golf outings. Our intimacy as a couple has reduced, but I thought I was happy being blessed with a cute daughter. One day, while cleaning my husband's room, I found a receipt under the drawer. What's this receipt? Wait, $3,000? The receipt was from a renowned brand. I was taken aback by the staggering amount I had never seen before. Why would this receipt be here? William is not interested in brands, and moreover, this is a woman's brand. After racking my brains, I arrived at a conclusion. Could this be a birthday present from my husband? My birthday is in 2 weeks. It must be that. I chose to interpret it in a favorable way, pretended not to notice, and put the receipt back in its place. On my birthday, my husband didn't come home. If he was preparing a present, he should have returned home early, maybe even bought a cake. But my expectations were dashed quite easily. My husband returned home after midnight. Moreover, he smells like perfume. He doesn't use perfume. Could it be? I subtly hinted my own birthday to him. Hey, William, do you know what today is? What's with you all of a sudden? I'm tired, you know. Did you know it was my birthday today? Ah, right. Happy birthday. I was taken aback by my husband's nonchalant birthday wish. Is that all? I asked, to which he made an obvious face of displeasure. What do you mean by, is that all? You're over 30, aren't you? We're not at an age to celebrate each birthday. Well, that might be true, but I'm going to take a bath and sleep. All right. With that, my husband left the living room. I came to understand that he didn't even feel like celebrating, let alone give a gift, and finally I was certain. My husband was having an affair. That receipt must have been for his mistress. His frequent absences due to overtime and business golf outings were probably to meet her. Thinking about this, sadness and frustration brought tears to my eyes, despite leaving all housework and childcare to me. I can't forgive him for meeting another woman under the pretense of work. Having confirmed my husband's affair, I decided to gather information on the other woman. A few days later, waiting for my husband to fall asleep, I checked his smartphone. The evidence of the affair was quickly found in his chats and pictures. Surprisingly, my husband didn't have just one mistress, but 2. Unbelievable. An affair is already intolerable, but 2 other women? What on earth is he thinking? My beloved man turned out to be such a despicable person. I was deeply disappointed. By this time, my anger toward my husband had surpassed my sadness. I was determined to corner him thoroughly and started gathering information on the mistresses fervently. First, the first mistress. Her name is Mary. According to their chat on What Up, she seems to be working at the same office as my husband. She's in her early 20s, and my husband appears to be her mentor at work. I assumed they grew closer because they had more chances to talk at work. I was utterly disgusted that he couldn't distinguish between work and personal life. Then, the second mistress, her name is Jessica. She's a woman in her early 40s, older than both my husband and me. Apparently, they first met on a dating app, but this woman turned out to be a real piece of work. She looks like a beautiful woman in the photos, but she's been divorced twice and has 4 children with her ex-husband. Since finding out about her history, my husband's responses on What Up have become noticeably cold. Even so, Jessica seems to be in love with my husband, and she sent him this message. "Leave your wife and marry me," she wrote. "I do have kids, but my ex has custody, so it's okay. It's got to be fair. I'll love you forever, so how about remarrying me?" Countless messages like these from Jessica had me recoiling, even as a woman myself. Yet, in stark contrast to Jessica's intense affections, my husband appeared to want to end things with her. The reason was simple. His heart belonged not to Jessica, but to Mary from his office. Conversations with Mary on his messaging app hinted at plans of marriage. To him, it seemed Jessica and I were just obstacles in his way. I can talk about it nonchalantly now, but when I first discovered his infidelity, it was a real shock. Despite having our daughter Lena, the thought of him neglecting our family to enjoy an affair filled me with more anger than sorrow. Considering Sarah's future, I decided to divorce him. I initially planned to demand substantial alimony and child support. However, simply milking him for money and saying bye-bye didn't sit well with me. Tossing us aside and seeking his own happiness after paying us off, I wouldn't stand for it. How should I punish him? As I pondered this while cleaning his room, I found some papers in his drawer. To my surprise, they were filled out divorce and marriage papers. Huh? What's this? They already filled out? I couldn't believe it. I knew he wanted a divorce, but I didn't expect him to have papers ready for marrying his mistress. My hands trembled with the papers, my anger simmering. I won't forgive him. I'll use any means necessary to drag him into the deepest pits of hell. Thus, I decided to take revenge on my husband and immediately set about preparing. A few days later, my husband, just sent back from work, began to converse unusually. "I've got a business trip this weekend." "Really? How long will you be away?" "A week in Chicago. Get my stuff ready, would you?" "Sure, I got it." I wasn't sure if he was really going on a business trip, but that didn't matter right now. Such a perfect opportunity didn't come by often. I planted a small GPS tracker in his travel bag. As expected, his destination wasn't Chicago, but Los Angeles. He'd likely gone on a trip with his real love interest, Mary. I messaged Jessica, the second woman, and arranged to meet behind my husband's back. At first, she was suspicious, but when I revealed my intention to divorce, she eagerly agreed. A few hours later, I met with Jessica and spoke to her plainly. "Nice to meet you. I'm Karen, William's wife. I'll get straight to the point. We're getting a divorce." "Huh? Are you serious?" "Of course. Look at this. It's the divorce papers that my husband prepared. I've already signed them, and I'm going to file them right away." "But why are you telling me all of this?" "I thought I should hand this over to you." As I passed the already filled out marriage certificate to Jessica, she widened her eyes in shock. This is this. "It seems like my husband wants to divorce me and remarry with you. I thought it would be better to give this to you in advance. That's why I brought it." "Is that so?" So he really understood my feelings. She must have been overjoyed. She didn't doubt a bit and readily accepted the marriage certificate. Surprisingly, Jessica even offered to pay alimony voluntarily and started writing an agreement on the spot. Well, there's no harm in accepting, so I took the agreement and we went our separate ways. I then headed straight to the city hall and submitted the divorce papers without a hitch. Now, everything is in place. All that's left for me is to finish moving out and wait for my husband to return. That day, I was at my parents' home with my daughter. I had already explained the situation to my parents, but upon seeing me in person, my mom asked me with a concerned look, "Karen, are you really okay?" I'm fine, Mom. The divorce papers have been accepted, and I'll explain it all to Sarah soon. I just need some peace right now. But what about Fair? You are going to talk to him, right? Yeah, he's supposed to be back from his business trip tomorrow. I suppose he'll contact me then. The next day, my ex-husband, who had returned from his affair trip, called me in a panic. Karen, where the hell are you right now? Where? I'm at my parents' house? At your parents'? Why so sudden? Our daughter isn't here and all the stuff in the room is gone. Did you do a thorough cleaning? When are you coming back? What are you talking about? Sarah and I aren't coming back to that house. Huh? Not understanding, he blurted out in a ridiculous voice. This was the perfect opportunity to drop the bombshell about his affair. So, by the way, you've been having an affair, right? What the hell are you talking about? And you want a divorce, right? That's why you prepare the divorce papers, isn't it? How did you... So I was right. Since you wanted this, I went ahead and filed the divorce papers. What? You did? You filed the divorce papers? Indeed. You'll be paying the alimony and child support for Lena, right? You do have at least that much responsibility, don't you? I said firmly. After a moment of silence, he replied, of course, that's the plan. I didn't think you'd notice my affair, but if we already divorced, then there's nothing left to do. I'm willing to pay what needs to be paid. Well, that's good to hear. As long as you pay the alimony and child support properly, that's fine by me. Right, yeah. Thanks for everything, Karen. You're really understanding. I truly appreciate it. Despite having 2 affairs, my ex-husband showed no signs of remorse. And yet, he had the audacity to try to end our relationship cleanly. I was incredibly frustrated. Why was he trying to make things end smoothly after having multiple affairs? Shouldn't an apology come first? So I decided to expose everything to my despicable ex-husband. Oh, by the way, I've also delivered the marriage registration to your new wife. Huh? New wife? Don't play dumb. You know Jessica, who's madly in love with you. She was one of your affairs, wasn't she? Wait a minute, Karen. You're joking, right? Tell me it's a lie. His voice was shaking so much that I could tell even over the phone. I was struggling to suppress my laughter. Huh? Why would I lie about that? While you were having a fun trip to Chicago with Mary, I made it sure to deliver it to Jessica. Wait, hold on. Why Jessica of all people? I wanted to marry Mary. Why don't you contact her? I gave the marriage registration to Jessica a few days ago, so she might have already filed it. No way, that's impossible. Wait, please, I never intended to marry Jessica. My ex-husband was begging me, his voice full of tears. Please, Karen, help me. I'd rather not divorce you than marry Jessica. Huh? What are you saying now? Jessica's crazy. She's like a half stalker. No matter what I say, she won't leave me alone. She's so persistent. That's what happens when you meet people on dating apps. You reap what you sow. Okay, I got it. I'll remarry you, Karen. So please help me. What about Mary? I thought she was the one you wanted. I'll break up with Mary. I realize that you're the one for me. I won't look at other women. So please help me. No. Huh? Why should I have to help a piece of trash like you who cheated while we have a daughter? Do you even understand your position? You were involved with other women and despite having a family. Do you think you can get off with just paying alimony and child support? Are you a fool? Karen, please forgive me. Don't call me by my name so casually. I will never associate with you again, and I will never forgive you. I won't let Lena meet you. And if you show up in front of us, I won't hold back. Never interfere with me and Lena's life again. After saying that to my ex-husband, I hung up. He kept calling back nonstop, but I never picked up. Later, after our divorce negotiations, it was decided that he would pay a large amount of alimony and child support for our daughter. And of course, I made sure to claim appropriate alimony from his 2 affairs as well. Let him feel the full consequences of laying a hand on a married woman. I heard that right after divorcing my ex-husband. Jessica made a bold move into the house he used to live in with me. This blindly in love woman, armed with a ton of luggage, moved right in. "Why are you here?" he stammered. "Why? Because we're finally husband and wife, aren't we? We can finally live together," she cooed. "No, you've got it all wrong. I had no intention of marrying you." "There's no need to be shy, sweetie. I received the marriage license from your ex-wife and I've already submitted it, okay?" "But that was Karen's doing." "Don't worry about the details, okay? As long as I can be with you in any shape or form, I'm happy." "Oh, help me." Just when he thought his ordeal was over, his hell wasn't done. Not long after Jessica moved in, Mary, the other woman he was having an affair with, barged into the house. And that's when Jessica and Mary met face to face. Instantly guessing what was going on, the 2 women started a full-on catfight. "Who are you? Why are you in his house?" "Who the heck are you? I'm his wife." "Wife? I thought he split from his wife." "He did, to remarry me. I don't know who you are or where you're from, but don't interfere with our love." I can't believe it. He said he wanted to marry me and he's already registered with another woman? I was chosen. You weren't. Simple as that. What? I've had enough. An exasperated Mary ended her relationship with him. She filed a complaint about his infidelity to his workplace, and my ex-husband was fired. Now he's working multiple part-time jobs and is barely scraping by, still paying me alimony and child support. His life is tough, and Jessica, his pushy wife, keeps nagging him. "Earn more money." I still get messages from my ex-husband once in a while on WhatsApp, a messaging app. I'll probably pay the alimony and child support, so let's start over. "I won't cheat on you again, I promise, so come back. I can't handle Jessica anymore. Mary kicked me out of the office. Help me." I read them, but never replied. I have no intention of getting back together, nor do I have any sympathy for him. He's getting exactly what he deserves. Let him suffer the consequences of his loose behavior. I'm considering blocking his contact and leaving the rest to my attorney. As for me, I'm living a peaceful life back at my parents' house. My daughter is about to start elementary school soon, so I plan to explain the situation with her father. It will probably be hard for my young daughter to face the harsh reality, because her father has been taken from her. But I intend to explain it to her as many times as necessary until she understands. I'm sure that when she grows up, she will understand. For now, my parents are supporting me. I look forward to enjoying the future happy times with them and my daughter.
I forgot. Here, this month's grocery money. My husband slammed a single $50 bill on the table. $50 for a month's worth of groceries for a family of 3? That's absurd. If you want to complain, just go work and earn some cash. I couldn't argue any more with my husband, who looked at me with cold eyes. My name is Lily. I'm 27. I live with my husband and daughter. I met my husband Ethan in college, and we started dating 6 months later. My mother passed away when I was still in elementary school, and I was raised in a single-parent household. I've been judged for that by some people, and never had a fiancé before. I've heard people make spiteful comments. Even my ex-boyfriend said, "I'm not marrying a child of a single parent. She probably won't be able to raise kids right." Behind my back. But Ethan was different. "Your father must be a great man to have raised such a wonderful woman like you." When he said that, tears welled up in my eyes. I was certain Ethan would always be on my side, no matter what happened. I was convinced then. After graduation, we both joined my father's company. 3 years later, Ethan and I decided to get married. I was brought up in a single-parent household, and my father has always been concerned about me. Although my father wanted Ethan to take after his business, Ethan's family strongly opposed, so we had to give up. I became Ethan's wife and moved into his family home, and so our marriage life began. Within half a year, we were blessed with a child. After that, I left my father's company. I want to start a happy home, surrounded by children. I was delighted that I was getting closer to the happy family life I had dreamed of. Little did I know that a hellish life would start after our child was born. One evening at dinner. Hey, are you trying to upset me by serving me this nasty food? Remake this! Shocked by Ethan's voice, I tried to calm his anger while at the same time soothing our newborn crying daughter, Emma. I'm sorry, but I ordered it from a diner, you know? It's good, right? Don't talk back! And you didn't cook it yourself! Both your housework and childcare. Do it right. Can't you stop taking your anger out on us? Why the hell are you my wife if you can't even cook a decent meal? Useless! Ethan spat out these words and then headed to his room. Why did it turn out this way? The man who was once so kind, I could find no trace of him anymore. He seemed like a different person. Ever since Emma was born, Ethan's behavior had been gradually changing. He'd get irritated at every little thing, belittle me, saying, "You can't even earn money, useless," or "Can't even handle being a stay-at-home wife. That's why women from single-parent families are..." And if anything upset him, he'd raise his voice. When I'd ask about his work, he'd ignore me, seeming either tired or absent-minded. After all, Ethan was the one who said he wanted me to be a stay-at-home wife, to support the household, which is why I quit my father's company in the first place. He would have an attitude and say harsh things at me, like that made him feel better. As much as I was disgusted by his attitude, knowing the hardship of being a single parent, I couldn't divorce him for Emma's sake. It seems like Ethan was doing well at work. In the midst of his hectic work schedule, he would call my father and occasionally ask for advice. But in reality, sometimes I'd look at a picture of me and my mother from my childhood that was displayed in the room, and I couldn't help but sigh. I wish I could have consulted with Mom. Living this way for 3 years. One day, I almost forgot. Here, this month's groceries. What Ethan slammed down in front of me was a single $50 bill. Feeding a family of 3 with $50 a month? That's impossible! What happened to our money? Saving up and working with the amount given is the job of a stay-at-home wife, isn't it? Since you're always at home, you should be able to use your brain and figure something out. That's impossible. Let me manage our living expenses. I can't. I have many gatherings to attend to anyway. Practically, it's only for you and Emma. So $50 should be enough, right? That's not... With that, Ethan left the room. You're such a wonderful woman. Your dad must be a really admirable person for raising you. Where did the Ethan from that time go? Or is this harsh Ethan his true self? I've often thought about running away, but I can't do it because of my daughter. The hardship of raising a child alone. Ugh, if only my mom were alive. I've contemplated divorce a few times, but the thought of burdening my daughter with a single parent overpowered that, and I could not muster the courage. However, that's not to say that I just accepted the situation and blindly followed Ethan's lead. I've asked him to increase the food budget several times, and I've also looked for work-from-home jobs and other employment opportunities behind his back. Even so, a monthly food budget of $50 does not allow me to provide decent meals for my daughter. I had been using my savings from the time I was single to supplement our monthly food budget, but there's a limit to my savings. I had been making it a priority to make sure my daughter ate nutritious meals. However, it was impossible to keep up such a grueling lifestyle of frugality, and my body finally reached its breaking point. If I collapse, who's going to take care of my daughter? Maybe I should ask my dad for help. And so I decided to call my father. But after discussing it with him, whether it was from relief or exhaustion, I immediately fell into a deep sleep on the sofa. When I suddenly woke up, the first thing I saw was my daughter's sleeping face. The trace of tears was clearly visible in her eyes. "Grandpa, Mommy's awake!" Really? That's a relief. Next, my teary-eyed father peeked in. Not understanding the situation, I stared at his face for a while. "Lily, we were really worried about you." "Dad? Where are we?" "We're in a hospital. To collapse from malnutrition in this day and age? What on earth happened?" My father was holding back tears, his words choked with emotion. He might have been crying the whole time I was asleep. My father has always been a crybaby. "I'm sorry for making you worry, but why are you here? What about work? Don't you remember? You called me for help. And when I called back because I was worried, Emma answered and told me you had collapsed. That's why I rushed over and called an ambulance." Saying that, my father gently stroked my daughter's head. "Thank you. We were saved because you told Grandpa." "I'm glad Mommy is okay." My daughter, praised by her grandfather, was all smiles. I would have never imagined my daughter Emma growing up to be such a strong individual. Perhaps she took me as a bad example to learn from. As I was deep in thought, looking at Emma, my father voiced his concern. "What happened to you, Lily? You've become so thin. Have you not been eating properly?" I tried to deflect his concern, but the seriousness in his eyes made me relent. I then confessed to him about my life with Ethan until now. "So, Ethan did this to you?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me anything?" "I didn't want to cause you any pain, Father. You were so happy when I married Ethan, and that's why." As I started to cry, my father, who took my hand, also started to shake with tears. "Lily, it hurts me more to know that you didn't feel you could tell me." The moment I heard those words from my father, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. "Father, I'm sorry." "There's no need for you to apologize. I'm always on your side, no matter what. You can always talk to me about anything." Yes. What had I been enduring all this time? If only I had confided in my father sooner, neither Emma nor I would have had to go through such hard times. I realized that in my desire not to worry Emma or my father, I had lost sight of what really mattered. My daughter couldn't possibly be happy growing up in a household filled with shouting and devoid of smiles. When my father saw the change in my expression, he said he was going to make a phone call and left the room. After a while, he came back and we talked for a good hour before Ethan arrived at the hospital. "Hey, don't call my office for trivial matters." Ethan stormed into the room, clearly annoyed, but quickly changed his tone when he saw my father. "Oh, father-in-law." On the other hand, my father was calm in the face of Ethan's rude behavior, which he had never seen at work. "This is a hospital. Don't you think your loud voice might disturb the other patients?" But Lily told my receptionist that she's been hospitalized due to malnutrition." "Yes, I was the one who made that call. Any problem with that?" "Oh, was it you who made that call? Because of what you said, I got weird looks from my colleagues. Had me getting embarrassed big time. Come on now, Dad." "Embarrassed? Huh. Feeling embarrassed is much better than being maltreated by your own husband, don't you think?" Seeing my calm father, Ethan gets enraged even further. "Lily, what are you babbling about? This is a family matter." Emma trembled, but my father gently held her into his arms. Ethan clearly didn't care about her presence. Perhaps he probably didn't even see her. Now, Ethan was going off at me, but strangely, my heart remained calm. Was it thanks to my father sitting next to me, or my daughter being there? I was able to confront my husband with an attitude that even surprised me myself. What? Are you going to hit me? Hey! You're feeling pretty bold today, aren't you? Acting all high and mighty. As I was about to snap back, my father gently restrained me and stepped in. Ethan, before you yell at my daughter, don't you think you have something to say to me? What would that be? Ethan asked back with a puzzled face. Though his veins were bulging with anger, my father continued the conversation calmly. You should be receiving a decent salary, yet you won't even feed your own daughter. What's the reason for that? What are you spending your money on? My husband fell silent. But, what are you angry about? This is just discipline. There's no problem at all. But more importantly, when will the CEO position be vacant? I'm ready to take after your business anytime. Huh? My father was at a loss for words at Ethan's ridiculous statement that revealed his true nature. Why are you surprised? As the husband of the CEO's daughter, isn't it normal that I should take over the company? And if a competent person like me becomes the CEO, our small business will grow rapidly. There's no doubt that it will prosper. Shouldn't you give me the position, right now? Ethan continued with his absurd remarks. Since my father seemed too astounded to say anything, I stepped in and said to Ethan, if someone like you becomes the CEO, his company will go bankrupt. What did you say? The moment enraged Ethan tried to raise his hand against me, my father grabbed his arm. You're fired. Huh? Didn't you hear me? I said you're fired. The company will go down if we have an employee like you. And asking me to give up the CEO position? You must be dreaming. Ethan, who was scolded by my father for the first time, stood there with his mouth left wide open. I hit Ethan with a final blow. Let's get a divorce. I don't want to be with you anymore. It's not nice to have you around my daughter either, and I don't want to trouble my father anymore. When I told Ethan I wanted a divorce, he exclaimed, Hold on a minute. If I can't become a CEO, what was the point of getting married to a woman like you? What? Your only trait is being the daughter of a CEO, right? I thought you wanted to be the successor, which is why I couldn't believe what Ethan had just said. He's changed. That's what I had thought, but it turns out he's been like this from the very beginning. Just then, my father opened the door and said, Please, come in. And Ethan's parents walked into the room. Mom? And Dad too? Why are you here? Ethan started to panic all of a sudden. My in-laws started to kneel in front of me. I told them, It's not your fault. Please lift your heads. And had them sit down. Then, with a beet red face, Ethan started to get lectured. We came as soon as we got the call. We heard from outside. What are you doing to your dear wife and child? We're disowning you. What? Then my daughter handed the divorce papers to my mother-in-law. Here you go. It seems she knew I had them in my bag all along. What the heck? How convenient, said my mother-in-law as she accepted the divorce papers and then signed and stamped them before leaving with Ethan. Please do divorce this man. As for alimony and child support, leave it to us. We'll make sure he pays. A few days later, I signed and stamped divorce papers without hesitation and went to the city hall with my father and daughter to submit them. After that, we had discussions about alimony and child support under a lawyer introduced by my in-laws. Throughout the process, Ethan acted maturely. And so it was agreed that Ethan would pay the alimony and child support in one lump sum from his savings. I said, Well then, goodbye. Take care, and left the lawyer's office. A year has passed since then. I'm now working part-time at my father's company. You're more competent than that man, Lily. You being here is a great help. My father said, And considering our future, I decided to work only during daycare hours. Me being quick at working on accounting calculations, people around me started to joke around, saying, "Lily's our next CEO! My daughter is really something. Should we do that?" My father keeps making these proud parent comments, but every time he does, I would say, "But then I'd have less time with my daughter, wouldn't I?" And I would laugh. Later, I had a meeting with the son of our client's CEO. The CEO of our client, a close friend of my father, said, "If my son does anything wrong, let me know. I'll definitely protect you." And he was a very nice man, so I'm considering getting married to him. I have no idea what has happened to Ethan since then. Emma is close with my in-laws, so we occasionally arrange for them to meet, but they've been kind enough to avoid bringing up Ethan. I am truly blessed by people around me. All of this is probably thanks to my father for raising me single-handedly, with all his might. I can't help but feel that the picture of my mother displayed in the room is smiling too. From now on, I plan to cherish my family and live happily with my daughter. "Mama, can I have seconds?" "Of course, baby. You're eating great." My daughter happily eats her food again today. I swear that I will never let her suffer. That's my vow.